you've seen the March release from Spellbinders, you will have seen the beautiful collection from Vicky P, Paint Your World. Today I'm using the Painter's palette to create a beautiful shaped die cut card. I'm having some fun with some embossing powders. I'm Verity and welcome to my YouTube channel, Pretty Little Button, where I make paper crafting tutorials for the everyday crafter. So as I mentioned, I'm using the Painter's palette die set. So this comes with a variety of different dies. You can use the die set to create your own paint tubes, and you also get the little ends and the sort of wrap around to colour the paint tube. So you can create loads of different colours. You also then get a paintbrush. Again, you get the individual items so you can customise the paintbrush as well to the colours that you want. And then you get the paint palette with some paint splodges. So you get a large paint palette, which is about the same size as an A2 card. And then you get the paint splodges in different shapes. Now I'm going to be using some embossing powders to create those paint splodges, and I just want to show you this embossing trio from WOW. It's come out recently and it's called the Independent Trio, and this is to do with obviously Ukraine and supporting Ukraine. So the donations and profits from this go to Ukraine, and they have Blue Skies, Wheat Fields and Independent. So I'm going to use a selection of embossing powders in a rainbow selection to create my paint splodges. So I've got Petalicious, which is a beautiful pink. I've then got Red Glitz, which is an embossing glitter which is red. California Gold, which is another embossing glitter for the orange. Then Wheatfields from that trio, which is a beautiful yellow. Then I've got Midori Splice from the Cocktail trio from WOW, which is the green. Then I've got Blue Skies, which comes from that Independent trio, which is a beautiful blue. And then we've got Nevada Blues, which is a soft lavender purple. Now to create these, I'm creating some embossed panels, and I'm just going to be adding some ink to my panel using my brayer. This is my preferred method when I'm just wanting to heat emboss cardstock. In general, it just gives a really good smooth coverage of ink. Now I'm not going to do a whole panel on each of them, but I'm just going to put 3 colours on each panel because I only need a small amount for the actual paint splodges, and then I've got these available if I need to die cut anything else for any other reasons. So I've got the yellow, the California Gold here, and then the Red Glitz, and just showing you how easy it is just to cover part of your card panel to emboss. I also did this with the remaining colours, so I did that with the Blue Skies, the Midori Splice and the Petalicious, and then I just did a smaller panel for the Niagra Blues. Because a lot of these are embossing glitters, I do like to heat set from behind. This just ensures that none of that glitter blows off before the powder's had a chance to actually melt and trap the glitter in it to secure it in place. If you do it from the front, it's not going to be the end of the world, but you might blow off quite a bit of your glitter before you actually get a chance to heat set it. And it also can give you a bit more of a smooth finish to your heat embossing. Once I'd heat embossed and set those, I then used the paint splodges to cut out from each of those panels, varying up the paint splodges I use. They've got different shapes. I did also die cut these out some white cardstock because I wanted to create these as sort of 3D paint splodges, so I layered them up behind there to give them a bit of depth and dimension. So to actually create the shaped die cut card, we need to first create our card base. So I have a card base here that's measuring at 5.5 by 4.25, and I'm just folding and scoring this in half at 4.25. This gives me the fold from which I'm going to put the Painter's Palette die over the top. Now to ensure that you've still got a card, you need to make sure that your Painter's Palette die doesn't completely cut out all of the card. You need a part of the card by the fold where it will not cut. So you need the die to overhang this, and as you can see I've got part of that die cut blade overhanging where the fold is, so it will not cut at that fold. And this means you've still got your back and your front still attached to one another. Now I use a bit of washi tape just to keep it in place, and as you can see that overhanging part of the die means that it won't die cut any of the card at that point. So as you can see, I've run this through my die cutting machine. I have that fold at the top where it's joining the front and back together, and it can stand up when it's opened as well. And this just shows you how easy it is to create a shaped die cut card. So I'm just going to show you a little tip that I did with the paintbrush. I wanted to give it a bit of depth and dimension. So I die cut the sort of handle of the paintbrush out of some sort of cream cardstock, beige cardstock. I'm just using a blending brush and some brown ink just to add a little bit of shading to one side of the paintbrush. And I'm just doing this ever so gently. This is just to obviously give it a bit more depth and dimension. I could have just left it flat, and you can do. But I just thought that little bit of brown makes it look a little bit more 3D. Now that die also does sort of die cut, well, it emboss into the brush, sort of the wood grain effect as well, so it's great. I also added a little bit of shading to the spool and also to the brush hairs, and I did a bit of purple just to match the purple of the last paint splodge. Now for the actual sentiment on this card, I am taking a sentiment from the Paint Your World sentiment stamp set, and I'm using the Thanks for Colouring in My World. I thought that was a really great sentiment to add onto this card. And I'm just using my Misty to position the paint palette in there, and I've not adhered any of the paint splodges or the brush down at the moment. I've just placed them in the Misty so I can work out the position of the sentiment. And I've stamped this in blackjack ink a couple of times just to get a really good impression. So then I adhered those all down with some liquid adhesive, and then just to finish off the paintbrush I added a little bit of clear Nuvo drops just to add a little bit of shine to the brush just to make it look like it's wet. I really enjoyed making this card. I really think it's fun and quick and easy to do. I'd love to know in the comments below, have you tried creating a shaped die cut card like this using partial die cutting? If you're interested in any of the products, just check out the description box below. You'll find a list of affiliated links to those products at no extra cost to you. If you're new to my channel, why not think about subscribing? You can hit that bell icon and be notified when my next video is up. Until next time, happy crafting!